All right, so here's a quick video on primary storage devices. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of storage devices and kind of where they came and where they go. The picture I have on the right hand side here doesn't necessarily get as far as we got in classroom because it mostly is on current devices. Devices over the years started out, if you go and do a search on Google and search for the first hard drive, you're going to find this enormous monster that they actually had to design an airplane to hold it, and it held a very small amount of data. I think it was 256 megabytes or something really tiny like that. And over time, we've gotten a lot better at storage. So there are basically three types of storage devices, and I said basically because things get crazy once you get there. There's magnetic, and those use a magnet to change a spot on the device itself to go from 0 to 1. There's optical, and they use a laser device. And then there's electrical, and they use that electrical current to change that. So magnetic storage, as you can see, I've got kind of a list over here, and I'd love to make it bigger, but, well, it's not going to get any bigger than that right now. So magnetic storage devices are things like floppy disks, and those are pretty old. In classroom, I've got an 8-inch one, which is pretty large. One of the primary magnetic storage devices now, because we don't use magnetic tapes or magnetic floppies. I used these back in 1979, taking my first class. I used a cassette tape special one. I was so proud of it. But nowadays, what you're going to see a lot is a lot of hard disk drives or HDDs. And the reason they're most common used is you can store several terabytes on a hard disk drive, and it's pretty efficient and it's fairly cheap. When we get to the next part, we're going to see that a hard disk drive, the fact that you can buy several terabytes for just a couple $100 makes it very cheap, and that's why they stay in production. So let's move to the second question. What's the most common optical storage device used in computers? So optical means it's written with a laser, and that's our CDs and our DVDs and even the Blu-rays in there. I'm not going to really include those because there's not a ton of Blu-ray writers out there, but there are a lot of CD and DVD writers. A CD itself can hold 70 megabytes, whereas a DVD depends. I'd have to look it up, but we're getting up there an excessively large amount, and we can put that on, and it's pretty easy to write. It's cheap. It's usually under a quarter to have one. So you can make a copy of a file and give it to somebody and just call it a day. You don't have to worry about it. So the primary one still used is CDs, and it's because they're cheap again. It comes down to that. So what's a flash drive, and what makes it different from a hard disk drive or an HDD? So flash drives use that electrical storage. They're actually storing that information electrically. And all these flash drives are very small and very cheap for the cost of the money. You can get a flash drive for $12, and it holds a gigabyte or more. I have some in the classroom. They're pretty straight up, and they hold 16 gigabytes each, which is a lot of data to put in your pocket. They're very immune to damage, so you can drop a flash drive on the floor, and it's still going to function. You have to go out of your way to destroy it. Whereas that hard disk drive we talked about earlier, even that CD drive or CD disk have a problem. A hard disk drive, if you drop it, you can easily damage it. The CD, if you scratch a little, it's done. Flash drives, you have to really go out of your way to destroy them, and they store electronically. So memory cards and memory sticks. So we've got a lot of SD cards, and these are cards, and the sticks aren't so much anymore. They used to be more popular originally, but they're very large, so people just prefer memory cards. So memory cards are generally used inside of cameras. That's their primary function. There's also some macro or micro cards that you can use like in your phone to increase the amount of memory. I have one in my phone right now that's 2 gigabytes of memory, and it's smaller than my fingernail. So they're very easy for transferring storage. They're a little pricey, so it's not like something you would just throw away and give away to friends. You have memory cards all the time. We call, I forgot the name of the thing. Oh my gosh. I'll come back to it in a moment. It slipped my brain. So, what is SSD storage? That is solid state drive storage. And why isn't it more common? Solid state drive is the same or similar technology as flash storage or flash memory, and that it's stored electronically. Now, the great thing is there's no moving parts in solid state drives, which means very little chance for data corruption or data error or for the device to stop working. It takes a lot for it to stop working. Why isn't it more common? It's expensive. You can buy a hard disk drive to hold the same amount for about a quarter of the price of SSD, and that's coming down now. We're seeing a lot more of that than we did before. So SSD storage is solid state, and it really is just electronic storage. Now let's talk about the cloud. The cloud, and I'm going to go over here to this and go really fast to NSA Utah facility. See if it comes up to there it is. So out there in Utah, they built a facility just south of Salt Lake City called the NSA Data Storage Facility, and the only thing it does is hold data. That big, huge facility, that's all it does is hold data. That's what we call the cloud. When you put something on the cloud, you're not actually sticking it in the air. It's actually going onto somebody's server somewhere, and it's being stored on their server. So my warning for that is if you put somebody on somebody's server, they don't do it for free. They get something out of it. They're either getting from you the ability to buy something, or generally they're getting the ability to access your data or to access the big data about your data, like where it was taken and what was going on at that time. They're getting that ability. So you're either paying for it, or if it's free, it means you're giving something to them. People just don't do stuff for free like that. That's a nice thought. But when you put something on the cloud, you're actually saving it or storing it on somebody's computer or server. We call it a server when it's else. And it's being stored there, whoever it's for. So let's get to the last question here. And this one I'm actually going to do some writing on. And I'm going to say, how many bytes are in an 80 gigabyte hard drive? Now, this is kind of a funny question, because if you wanted 1 kilobyte, there are 1,024 bytes in 1 kilobyte. There is 1,024 kilobytes in one megabyte. I guess I could put a 1 in front of that. That would be nice. And following along the same lines, there are 1,024 megabytes in one. I keep doing that. What do I keep putting it in 1 gigabyte? Let me fix this up here. So, calculating that, to get that calculation, to get 80 gigabytes, you're literally saying to get to 1 gigabyte, it's 1,024 times 1,024. So you're getting 1 kilobyte, and then you're multiplying it by a megabyte, and then you're multiplying it by a gigabyte, and then times 80. So why do we say that there is only 1,000, or why do we say only 1,000? The reason we do that is because it's rounded off. Generally, any storage device you're using has some built-in files into it that help it track where and how you're storing data. There's some stuff behind that you have to store. So generally, you're cut down. So you do the math and figure out that, and it's a big number, and that's the number of bytes. And this all goes down to base power of 2. So at the power of 2, we work, so 10, or yes, my dog, 10 to the power of 2 is 1,024, and that goes back to our binary. So I'm sitting here trying to still remember back to the cards that are in your phone. SIM cards, there we go. So memory cards that are pretty standard nowadays are SIM cards. They're in your phone. They maintain all that data in your phone. They're on credit cards. They're on a lot of different ID cards, and they're interchangeable. Um, Pretty straightforward. They're just a memory card. Well, I hope that helps a little bit, even though I couldn't remember what a SIM card was. Take it easy.